All right, well, welcome. Today we're going to talk about building buy-in, how green teams create a culture of sustainability. My name is Danny Sudman. I'm the founder and executive director of Green Camps, and excited to share some of this information with you. Throughout the presentation, we have several reflection questions that will go along with the guide that you have to answer questions as we go, to work with your team, or to bring back to your team as a starting point for the conversation around what sustainability looks like and means within your organization, and how you can build a team to really leverage what those goals and aspirations are. So the first one is, how can the teamwork that thrives in camp translate into a stronger culture of sustainability within camp and beyond? So most of us in the camp industry have some sort of team building program that we offer in a way to kind of build those 21st century learning skills of cooperation, collaboration, critical thinking, and problem solving through ropes courses or leadership development programs. And the idea that I'm pitching today is that we can utilize those skills that our staff and that our leadership already have to bring in conversations around sustainability. So how can we take those same concepts around problem solving and use them to address some of the challenges that our camp might be facing around trying to address challenges around sustainability? So I'm gonna just introduce myself a little bit more and kind of explain what my why is and why I'm passionate about what I refer to as green team building. So green team building is, again, that concept of using traditional team building to integrate aspects of sustainability. So my background, I grew up in the camp industry as a camper, and attended summer camp as a staff member, and then went on to leadership director positions at multiple camps around the country. Through that experience, I picked up skills, as we often do in camping, to work in environmental education and to work in the challenge course industry, as well as doing corporate team building offerings, where I've learned how to hone kind of that facilitation skill around bringing groups together, giving them positive experiences and allowing them to walk away and learn from those experiences to make their own decisions about how we can interact better with others and how we can, through green team building, have a positive influence and impact on our planet. So I wanted to start with a little bit of data. A big aspect in the way in which Green Camps functions and we support camps in pursuing sustainability is asking really good questions. Data can help us really lead to answer questions to give us insights on what best solutions to go after, and make informed decisions so that when we invest energy and time and money into pursuing sustainability, we can be very intentional about where that energy is going. So in 2023, I worked with a couple researchers to publish an article in the Journal of Outdoor Recreation, Leadership, and Education. Might have mixed those words around a little bit, but the JOREL, to look at the barriers and motivators to camp sustainability. So we just started by asking, what motivates, what makes you as camp directors, camp professionals want to pursue sustainability, and what are the challenges that you're facing? So you can learn more about our research at greencamps.org/research, and we'll provide more around that as well. But I wanted to hit on a couple main points that we found from this research. So the first, one of our next questions, reflection, is when you think about your camp's current sustainability efforts, what is working well in terms of what are you already implementing that you're doing that you would consider sustainable? Now you might dig a little deep and understand that some things that you might not really relate to sustainability, you can really define those as sustainable in terms of limiting waste, conserving water. So think and celebrate the things that you're already doing. But then also, where is there a gap between your intentions, what you'd like to be doing, and then what you're also doing? I think this was one of the most powerful pieces of data that we pulled from this research, was looking at what camps are currently engaging in versus what they want to be doing more of. So we know there's a desire in the orange bar, where waste management being the highest one. 88% of camps want to engage more in waste management. But based on what's engaging now, only 40% of camps are. So our vision and our goal is, how can we shrink that gap? How can we kind of change to what we want to do to actually doing those things, which is kind of a common challenge I think that we face in a lot of areas of camp. So you can see the different areas. Again, in general, there's a strong desire in sustainable education and conservation of natural resources, purchasing and procurement, as well as energy and water conservation. And that's what we hope to do. So we've got this data, the research is showing us that there's this gap. The other piece that we want to look at for this research were the barriers. So we know we want to do it, there's an interest, but what are the barriers? What's holding us back from actually moving forward with those? And as anyone could probably guess, number one barrier, 78.5% of camps responded that lack of access to financial resources is a big barrier, and that's understandable. Close to that is cost of implementation, so to actually implement these solutions. And then the next one is lack of staff with knowledge and skills to implement, which I think all are kind of financial limitations, because staff is a pricing point in terms of having the staff to implement the solutions when we need staff to watch kids or to lead programs. So how can we focus on having the staff to really focus on those sustainable initiatives? So that's just a brief picture. I mentioned where you can find more of this research, but I wanted to hit on the other 5 kind of key research findings that we came out with. Camps are already taking action. I have so many great stories that I really want to share. Would love to connect and share more stories, as well as learning about the things that you're already doing that you would consider sustainable in terms of taking action. There's some really cool things that camps are doing already out there. Camps are eager to do more, but we're not measuring our current impact. And going back to this initial idea of data is going to be really powerful in allowing us to understand how we can extend our initiatives beyond what we're currently doing. And then guided by values over economics. And I thought this was a really interesting finding. The reason that camps are expressing that they want to be more sustainable, it's not primarily based on saving money. Now that's the biggest barrier that we experience, but the reason they want to be more sustainable is because of the values associated with them. Next, limited resources slow progress. There are not a ton of resources in the camp industry to support camps in exploring sustainability, which is a big reason I founded Green Camps, to bring more of these resources. And the last one on this is that it is a growing priority. More camps than ever are interested in doing this and exploring resources to implement these solutions. So with a little bit of data backing like what the barriers and challenges are, just kind of general broad strokes of what other values, like why we should go green. Long-term resilience is a really important aspect. We often have conversations about failing infrastructure and the challenges for our organizations, like how do we maintain, how do we continue going? We're 100 years into this, how can we keep it going for another 100 years? Sustainability helps reduce cost, builds operational stability, and helps campers and staff channel climate concern into meaningful action and hope. I'll touch on that point a little bit more, but how do we maintain, not only the emotional aspect, but the physical part of our facilities to have long-term resilience? The other piece of that is our natural communities. There are camps struggling to keep their forests alive, trees are dying, the impact of water, lakes and ponds that are no longer freezing over in the New England region, that are having crazy algae blooms that have never happened before. These are impacting our ability to operate our camps. Cultural integration and community demand. There's a strong desire of campers and parents. There's also kind of value-based, like Takon Olam and Baal Tashit, in terms of the sustainability aspect of values around the lessons and the cultural aspect of Jewish life and how we can share these lessons with campers and staff. And then I mentioned I'd come back and talk about climate anxiety. I think that young people, and there's research, I've had conversations with psychologists that focus in this area, young people are feeling anxious. And I imagine us as adults sometimes might feel anxious as well. We've already seen it last summer, the floods in Texas. There are a lot of realistic situations and climate disasters that are happening, and we have the opportunity to promote agency in campers and give them hope and help them see that we can overcome some of these challenges. So in terms of how we do that, so rubber meets the road, how do we do that? So my main focus of this session and kind of the general approach on building a culture of sustainability within an organization is to form a green team. I think it sounds so simple when you put it that way, but we're really just bringing people to the table to have a conversation and explore solutions. So those values include building community. So we're inviting people from in and around our community to come have a seat at the table and express what sustainability means and looks like to them, so that we can get their take, their resources, their support as we move forward. It develops leaders. There's so much opportunity for especially young people or young staff members. When I'm at camps and I ask, like, what are your concerns and what are your hopes and dreams? The staff are eager to do this, to lead in these initiatives. And that can be scary as a camp director to give this power and influence to leaders and allow them to move forward, but we can do it in a really strategic way to give them agency to make these changes. It creates structure and creates systems in order to kind of provide boundaries and goals and objectives as we move forward. And then lastly, it delivers results. Data is that big piece. We start with data, we end with data. We can measure the impact. If we say we're going to reduce water consumption by 10% in summer of 2026, we can measure that and understand, did we meet that goal? Did we fall short? Did we go above it? We can measure those goals and celebrate those successes with our green teams. So overcoming implementation challenges, I'd love for you maybe pause for a second and write down what are the concerns that you have, because I hear a lot of concerns regularly on the idea of implementing sustainability, and then come back and let's see if we hit on some of these as we go through them. So the first one is cost and resources. That was that number one challenge in the research. The concern, sustainability feels expensive or out of reach. And the solution of bringing a green team together is we can prioritize low-cost behavior changes that reduce waste or deliver long-term savings. The most affordable economic way to have a positive impact on the environment is to change our behaviors. It's very low cost. We don't have to start a whole composting program to do that, but it's hard. That's changing culture, and changing culture can be really challenging. But if we have a team of folks representing, they can find ways to engage campers and staff and focus on that. Another one is lack of time and capacity. Staff are already stretched thin, and yes, they definitely are. A solution using the green team is that engages staff and campers in shared sustainability actions, integrating small, manageable steps into daily operations. The idea of having campers and staff integrated into these green teams, they're going to take and they're going to be the ones responsible for these actions. So if we're struggling getting campers to throw the plastic bottle into the recycling bin, instead of me as a program director or a leadership member, if we put the emphasis on the campers and the staff to lead these efforts, they're going to be the ones building this culture as we move forward. Next one, difficulty measuring impact and maintaining momentum, tracking and celebrating success. Again, track the data so that we can teach these campers and staff the real value of how we solve problems. It doesn't happen very easily and overnight, but we can teach them these real world skills to track and evaluate their successes. And then seasonal operations comes up quite a bit. Momentum fades between camp seasons. With a green team, that's something we can extend between seasons. We can engage campers and staff back home in their communities, help them take the lessons they've learned from their time at camp and implement those into their camp community and stay connected and stay engaged throughout the season. Data. I talk a lot about data and the value of having that information to make informed decisions. Green teams start with data. One of the easiest and first line steps you can do is create a baseline. If we're gonna celebrate our successes, we need to know what we're measuring it against. So I often encourage camps to start with a needs assessment to collect some data, go to your utility company and ask them to do an audit to understand how much waste are we producing right now. How much energy are we consuming? How much water are we consuming? So that we can set goals with our green team and say, again, let's reduce our water consumption by 5%. What actions or behavior changes are going to take us to do that? And then we can go back and celebrate those. Prioritize and review what data points you want to go after, develop plans, And then measure. Again, measure those improvements, celebrate those successes, or if we fall short, that's a real world opportunity for learning how we can come back and readjust our plan. When it comes to application of these green teams and what we can accomplish, this is a case study that I wanted to share. This is a pretty high level, big dollar investment in what Camp Robinhood out of New Hampshire invested in to make happen. We don't necessarily have to go to this scale and scope, but I'll start by saying Camp Robinhood invested about $100,000 into a couple different systems. Their annual average savings is about $35,000 a year. So in the period of 3 years, they're going to repay that investment, and then they're just going to be reaping the savings. And what would you do with an extra $35,000 at your camp every year? There's a lot of good answers to that. So starting on the left here, this is a compactor. This is used for a baler compactor. You can see the baled cardboard. These average, I think the value is about $60 per bale, and you can see this line of bales, and this was pretty early in the camp season, so you can add those dollars up on what the revenue from that is. These cores, these are the, I think, number 10 cans that we get in the dining hall with a lot of food, and they put those in there. This compactor will also compact those, and I believe those are valued at about $2 a pound. So they'll compact those once they get enough collected and then sell those as well. This is their kind of waste collection area. They used to have 9 of the big, long dumpsters that would be picked up periodically, right? 9 of those things out there, bringing bears and other things in. Because of the practices that they've implemented, they have 1 trash compactor that they can fill. It compacts as they go. It's all automated, and they can tell when it's getting full. They then call for the pickup of it and are charged significantly less than the amount of times that they're having to send their waste out. Other things in their dining hall, which is kind of moving us to the big one, which I'm really excited to share about. This just collects water. So they do a lot of composting, which we'll look into in a second here, but getting rid of the water, so if we have cups of lemonade or cereal, milk bowls there, by getting the water out, it's really, really helpful. Moisture is important in composting, but a big challenge that you face when you're composting, too much moisture will make your compost very smelly. So they just take the water out and don't mix it with the food. This is their salad bar, which is really awesome. I've seen a lot of salad bars that just dump ice, and so every time you set the salad bar up, you have to fill it with ice or ice packs in there. This is refrigerated. It's an Energy Star unit, so it's relatively efficient anyways. And then these are refrigerators, and they're able to take their food from the salad bar and just pop it right into these refrigerators. So rather than the kitchen staff having to take these all the way back into the kitchen and back out for every meal, they can just store all that in there. And now we start moving into the composting piece, which is the biggest part of their investment and probably the biggest return as well. These green bins, they have a food waste to energy service that they utilize. These bins and rolling carts are set around the dining hall. Campers and staff will again put their liquids in the blue bin and then put their food scraps. So just food scraps, no paper waste or anything like that. And then they take it in the back of the dining hall, and the dining hall staff will collect that waste, and then they put it through this machine, which I'll share a video with you in just a second about that machine. This machine grinds it up and sends it into the basement, where a 3,000-gallon tank takes and holds all that grinded up food. Once that tank fills, the cost is about $700 for a company to come in. They clip into this device and they pump that empty. So 3,000 gallons of food waste costs them $700 to dispose of. If we think about what that capacity would look like in our dumpsters and our containers, that's why they were able to get rid of so many of those. This food waste is also then sent to a factory where this is processed and created into biofuel, which is pretty awesome. So we'll check out the videos of these processes now.
Now I'm dressing up to get my machine running. This is a two-phase machine that we were talking about. We get the power out, and then we come up here and we get all the stuff that we need to get this machine running. Right now here you can see all our collecting buckets. This is all distributing every place in here. They get all the food in here, and our job is to go through this because our machine, we always make sure that nothing goes in there that it shouldn't be going in there. Like very, very small plastic containers, so maybe, you know, by mistake someone do a fork, stuff like that. All of that we sorted out in our buckets. We also have big green buckets that we use in our kitchen, and everything is collected to go into the grinder as we're gonna demonstrate to you, okay?
Awesome. Can they put anything in there, like any food waste?
Any food waste in it. Everything from even chicken bones and everything. This grinder is super powerful.
Awesome.
We always just try to make sure that nothing that is not food goes in there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Cool. Let's go check it out.
All right. Okay, so right here is a demonstration. These are the big buckets that we're gonna be ready to assemble. We're gonna place start one. Our machine is gonna start doing it. It's gonna help me to get this on there. Let's go.
How heavy is that thing? Is it heavy?
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So our top gently let this is where it goes right here. So our side just make sure that there is nothing we don't want, but we easily just put it into the hole. And it goes to the whole distance downstairs. Okay? It's pretty fast. We take our time just making sure we don't have this look from the game from the kitchen, from the salad bars, all the ways that we don't want to use anymore. Okay? And we just gonna push it straight away.
So again, that's a pretty high level process and project to go through and make that investment. If your organization is eager and ready to go gung-ho with it, then by all means, I think we have the capacity and capability to do those. But I also wanted to share and highlight some maybe kind of less, some more like entry level projects and things that your green team could potentially take on. This summer I had the pleasure of visiting over about 30 camps all over the country, really focusing on food waste. So food waste is one of the biggest contributors I think that camps are probably well aware of, but also understanding that when a camper comes through the dining hall line, we don't ever want to run out of food for them. And as a camp director, I understand that challenge. So looking at ways in which to reduce food waste, going from all stages of measuring the food waste and thinking about waste sorting, composting as an initiative, and then education and encouraging, engaging campers in that process can have a big impact. Again, this isn't one person at the organization just figuring out these solutions. It takes collaboration and teamwork from our food service staff, from our support staff, our leadership, our campers, our staff, to figure out and implement solutions just to kind of take down the amount of food waste we're producing before we even start talking about composting as well. How can we limit those things in? Another project is energy and water conservation. Campers and staff can participate in collecting data and information about energy and water audits to understand where our energy is coming from and ways that we can reduce that consumption. I go back again to that idea of behavior change, that turning lights off when we leave a room, turning the water off when we finish washing our hands. Like, those are all behavior change things that can add up to have big impacts there and give us these quick wins that we can really share. And then again, I say engage the camp community. I think anytime we implement a sustainable action, there's an opportunity for education and share the impacts of how we're benefiting the environment, how we're benefiting our bottom line, and the people that are in our environments there. And another one is waste sorting systems as well. So figuring out bin collection systems for sorting, recycling, composting, and trash, and how and where those get collected. And this is a common challenge that I hear camps struggle with in terms of how do we get campers to throw the right things in the right bin? Because as soon as we have contamination, especially with composting and really with recycling as well, it just ruins the whole system. So if we're sending our recycling off and our recycling is contaminated, it might just wind up in the landfill. And this is something that a lot of staff, or adults for that matter, they say, isn't our recycling just going to the landfill anyways? And a lot of times it is, and that's the big reason for it, is it's contaminated. So we can be very focused and intentional about assessing our current systems, designing better stations, and monitoring and maintaining those systems. And I go back to this idea of, if it is a camper engagement and a staff engagement piece where everybody's built in and there's a culture around these initiatives, we're gonna have a lot more success in being able to manage and implement these solutions. And lastly, I feel that signage is one of the most powerful forms of education. Signage allows a participant to walk up, gather the information and data, and make their own decision about what action they're gonna take. So if we think about good signs at a recycling station, at a compost station where we're collecting compost, that's where we can really have a lot of impact for very little investment. A good sign, maybe a designer that we hire, maybe it's a camp staff member that works in design, maybe you have your campers design signs. This is part of a project that we launched for a sign design contest where campers created signs to encourage green behavior change. These visual prompts, this fact says 30 to 50% can increase recycling and conservation participation. And again, these are pretty easy entry-level things, but can have a really big impact, can engage our campers and staff, and really start to build that culture around what sustainability means and looks like at your camp. I want to continue to support your efforts. Green Camps is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're excited to continue generating resources and guides and templates in this Green Team launch toolkit that we want to provide for you. There's 3 main pieces that we're sharing with you. The first one is a free needs assessment. This needs assessment asks just general operational questions like, do you compost right now? And your responses could be yes, yes, but we'd like to do more, no, and no, but we'd like to, or other, because there might be other reasons in there as well. So very high level, just to start asking the good questions so that you can take that data and bring it to your green team and be able to have a good starting point, to have some data to guide your conversations as you move forward. The next one is a green team guide, and this includes templates for sending emails out to people within and around your community to ask them to come to the table and have the conversation with you about what sustainability means and looks like. And think about who could be on your green team. It doesn't just have to be staff or leadership. What about like a local utility member that works for the utility company and the energy company, or maybe a local composting company, or a local business owner, or a local farmer, which helps us build bridges to our communities and provide engagement and bring those resources and support in. And then lastly is an initiative that we created that guides a camper green team that basically uses a staff member to facilitate and guide a group of campers through the process of collecting data and creating a camp-wide initiative. So how cool if our campers land on the initiative, they choose where they want the focus, and they say, we're gonna focus on turning the lights off, and your campers are leading the charge, and that is gonna be really powerful and impactful. You can scan this QR code to sign up and receive those resources. And this is the link to our survey session. So if you have any feedback or question or notes on the survey, we'd love to have that feedback so we can continue providing more sustainable education to the camp industry. Thank you so much.